be alive and well, and I'm very happy to be here this evening. Let me welcome you to the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, Talk of the Town Ballroom. My name is Wayne Wallace, and I'm honored to be your host for the rest of the evening's activities. And for those of you who are inquisitive, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and IG, yes, at Wayne the First. Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, capital D, 1-S-T. Alright, this evening is about one thing, and one thing only. We are here to recognize the sterling service that Dr. Cecil Batchelor has given to the medical fraternity, and in particular, the Princess Margaret Hospital. We intend to honor him. There are some persons here who know Doc much better than I do, and perhaps better than some of you do. And they will be moving the tributes this evening and sharing glimpses of Dr. Batchelor's life in the medical field. As your MC, I wear many hats, so let me set the rules. I am the man in charge. You do what I say, and not what I do. When I give my jokes, even if they're corny, you must laugh. And you must applaud. As your MC, me must chat. Because MC means must chat. And so I will talk as much as I need to talk. As much as I need to talk. We are aware that we are a little behind time, and we are also aware that St. Thomas is 2 hours drive, especially in this 1.5 hours. Wow. And so we will try to get this flight up and running and landed as quickly as we can, but we don't intend to rush it. We intend to savor the moment as well. So, welcome aboard this evening. Without further ado, I now invite the CEO of the Princess Margaret Hospital, Miss Melissa Linton. She will welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wallace. Mr. Errol Green, Regional Director of the Southeast Regional Health Authority. Dr. Sandra Chambers, Regional Technical Director of the Southeast Regional Health Authority. Mrs. Colleen Wright, Parish Manager of the St. Thomas Health Services. Professor Denise Eldemeyer Shearer, Executive Director of the Mona Aging and Wellness Center, and she's joining us via Zoom. Dr. Fenton Ferguson, Caretaker for Eastern St. Thomas. Mr. Wayne Wallace, Master of Ceremony. And other senior technical and administrative officers within the St. Thomas Health Services and the Southeast Regional Health Authority. But, in particular, our most distinguished guest, Dr. Cecil Batchelor, former Senior Medical Officer of the Princess Margaret Hospital, and his immediate family at the head table. Mr. Ronald Mackenzie, who is also a member of the Princess Margaret Hospital Management Committee, other healthcare professionals, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good night. My name is Melissa Linton, and I'm the CEO of the Princess Margaret Hospital. Tonight, we celebrate and recognize the sterling contribution of an extraordinary human being who has committed his life to serving others. Dr. Batchelor has devoted in excess of 3 decades to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, in particular the Princess Margaret Hospital, and has, through his direct efforts, made significant strides to improve the quality of healthcare services delivered to the residents of St. Thomas and its neighboring parishes. Isn't that a significant feat? I am certain that such a feat would have resulted in many personal sacrifices being made, as well as those of his family, and for that we thank you. It is with a grateful and joyful heart that we come together to acknowledge and celebrate with Dr. Batchelor and his family this great accomplishment. I welcome you all tonight and thank you for gracing us with your presence as we commemorate this special occasion. Do enjoy the rest of the evening's proceeding. Thank you.
Melissa, so you're all feeling welcome now, all right? And your hearts are settled. All protocols have been, observed and established. Before we go any further, there's one person that we need to welcome inside here. Yes. And so I'm going to invite Mrs. Pauline Bryant Ellington to come and to invite the presence of the Lord.
Pleasant good evening, everyone. Would you be so kind to stand with me? This evening would not be complete without us thanking the Lord for having given life and strength and ability to the one that is being honored. And without, us also thanking God for our own life and for bringing us here safely and committing all other things into his hand. We must have the Lord. We cannot manage without him. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for your goodness, for your mercies and your love towards us. We thank you, dear Lord, and we pause in this occasion to acknowledge that we are men and thou art God. We thank you for the work and the sacrifice of the one that is being honored this evening. We thank you, Lord, because if it had not been for you that provided health and strength, none of this would have been possible. And so as we come together in this fashion, we pray for your blessing upon the rest of the evening. And dear Lord, for the rest of his life, the balance of his days, upon him, dear Lord, and his family, we pray your continued blessing and guidance. We pray for the organizers, and we pray for this company of friends and loved ones and families that are gathered here this evening, that your continued blessing will be upon us. We are grateful and we don't take it for granted. Thank you, Lord. We commit everything in your hands in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Brian Ellington. Mrs. Ellington, the Chief Public Health Inspector for the St. Thomas Health Services. Recently I was involved in a conversation about doctors. And one of the things that I have learned about doctors is that they really don't like to talk a lot. I'm not in the medical profession, so I don't know. I'm telling you what I was told. They would much rather stick you with a needle than talk. I don't know. So don't take my word for it. I'm just repeating some things that I have heard recently. They would rather cut you open with a knife than talk. That's not true? Well, I'm happy that it is not true because I'm afraid of knives. So I'm happy that it's not true. Now, let me share with you a very funny story I heard. You will agree with me that doctors have one of the hardest jobs though?
Yes.
It's not, and sometimes patients are very hard to please, not true?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I'm a very heavy patient, so I understand. So there was this 3 friends, 3 males, and all 3 of them wives got pregnant around about the same time. And so they all ended up in the delivery room about the same time. And the 3 friends were there. It so happened, unfortunately, that the delivery process took much longer than anticipated. Now, I don't know if anybody can identify with that. I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first child, that it took a while for her to have the baby. Eventually, they had to do a C-section. So I understand the anxiousness of that very long wait. So these men were waiting. Patiently at first, then impatiently, and then anxiously. Finally, the doc came, and he said to the first gentleman, "Sir, congratulations. Your wife has delivered a twin. Congratulations." And he started laughing. I mean, he felt so good. I mean, finally, it was over. And he had twins. And there were 3 boys. So he turned to his friend and said, you know what caused that? The 2 friends looked at him and said, "We have no idea." He said, "Well, let me share a secret with you. I drink a lot of double-barrel wine. And that's why I got twins." So he went off to see what was happening with his twin boys. The other 2 friends remained on the outside. Quite a longer wait. Then the doctor came again and said to the second man, "Congratulations. Your wife has delivered a lovely triplet, 3 lovely girls." He was a little bit surprised about the triplet. But of course, it wasn't one of those joyous moments, so he celebrated. And he turned to his friend and said, "You know what caused that?" His friend said, "No idea." He said, "I drink a lot of 3-man stout." So the friend said, "Okay." So he left to be with his triplets and his wife. The other gentleman was there sitting for a very long time. No doctor could come. He started pacing the floor. And after a while, he began to run. Just run. When he reached at the security gate, they held on to him and said, "Where are you going?" He said to the security, "Sir, I have been here for 11 hours. 3 of us were here as friends. 3 of us wives were pregnant. The first one was delivered. He got twin boys. And he said to me, it was because of the double-barrel wine that he drank. My next friend went in 2 hours ago. His wife delivered triplets. He said to me that it was as a result of drinking 3-man stout." So the security said, "But why are you running away? Your wife hasn't delivered as yet." He said, "Sir, I don't want to hear." The security was puzzled. "Why don't you have been here for 11 hours and you are now running away. Why don't you want to hear?" He said, "Well, listen. If my friend loved double-barrel wine and him get twin, if my friend loved 3-man stout and him get triplet, sir, from medical wine, I love 7 up." Thank you very much. At least somebody is observing the room. Dr. Dwight O. Whitler is a consultant physician and gastroenterologist. He's a native of Morant Bay, St. Thomas, where he attended the Morant Bay High School. He later moved on to Ireland High School in St. Andrew and later matriculated to the University of the West Indies, where he attained his qualifications in the field of medicine. The field of medicine took him to several places and areas across the United States of America. He went to Grand Cayman, Turks and Caicos Island, and of course, his island home, Jamaica. He is currently the acting senior medical officer at the Princess Margaret Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, to bring greetings this evening, put your hands together. Make welcome Dr. Whitney.
Everybody,
Good evening.
and thank you for joining us. And I say good evening to the persons online as well. And I can categorically say I have no needles or knife ready. It is indeed a pleasure and a privilege for me to bring greetings on behalf of the Senior Medical Officer's desk. And as you would all know, Dr. Batchelor would have held this post for a number of years. Now, Dr. Batchelor would have inherited this office from Dr. Ronald Lampard, the late Dr. Ronald Lampard. And among other things, Dr. Lampard was renowned for introducing psychiatry to the parish and to the hospital indeed. And we do recognize that Dr. Batchelor would have continued on the progress of growing the hospital. And I think Dr. Batchelor recognized that the hospital needed to move forward, and indeed it did. But he also appreciated that he could not do it alone. And to make the point clear, when Dr. Batchelor started, there was one consultant, namely himself, in the field of general surgery. And when he departed from the hospital, there were 8 consultants in 8 disciplines. These disciplines were internal medicine, gastroenterology, cardiology, psychiatry, obstetrics and gynecology, pediatrics, and general surgery, of course, and anesthesiology. And I think it is worthy for another round of applause. Dr. Batchelor introduced many things at the hospital. He introduced laparoscopic surgery at the hospital, and in 2008, we introduced endoscopic services. And it is indeed an honor to tell you today that the endoscopy services, Dr. Batchelor, is still active and going well, and it is the only public hospital in the Southeast region area that offers endoscopy public. This service is by no means limited to the persons of St. Thomas. The doctors and my colleagues would know that St. Thomas would have provided endoscopic services for Bustamante, KPH, Anatomy, Port Antonio, and even as far as St. Anthony's Hospital. And we are open to all patients. We appreciate, however, that the roads are going to be a challenge and getting there. But nonetheless, we press on. Now, to Dr. Batchelor's family. Mrs. Batchelor, for the last 3 decades, we would have seen more of your husband than you. But I can guarantee you, he was always at work. He was nowhere else. I can vouch for it. But I bring greetings also to his family, because Dr. Batchelor's efforts certainly could not have been limited to himself only, and certainly extend greetings and say thank you to his family for allowing Dr. Batchelor to extend himself to the parish, to the hospital, and indeed to the parish as much as he did. Now, is our journey over, Princess Margaret? Certainly not. But we want to pause to say and look back and say thank you to Dr. Batchelor, to look at the work and the legacy he has done, and to say, well done, Dr. Batchelor. I can assure you that the work will continue, and we will certainly move Princess Margaret Hospital and indeed St. Thomas to greater heights as we go forward. Dr. Cecil Batchelor, a boss, a friend, a colleague, a mentor, a doctor of doctors, if you will, my personal doctor, in fact. And Dr. Batchelor, we want to say thank you for your years, and we want to wish you well in your future endeavors. Thank you.
I might start changing some of the things that I have heard, but it certainly doesn't seem to be true at all. One thing was very clear though, that I am not just your MC and the man in charge, but I'm very short in stature. We could use some help with the microphone stand to get a little bit higher for those persons who are not as short as I am. Alright? So I don't know if anybody can assist with getting the microphone up when the need arises for those persons who are much taller and need to be heard clearly. Alright. We have Dr. Doyen Smith, Senior Medical Officer of the St. Thomas Health Services, and I believe that Dr. Smith will be online. Right, so he will deliver his greetings via Zoom. Put your hands together and make
Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Cecil Batchelor, Mr. Wentworth Charles, our Board Chairman, Mr. Errol Gray, Regional Director, staff of the St. Thomas Health Services and the Southeast Regional Health Authority, Mr. William Wallace, our Master of Ceremonies, Professor Denise Eldermar Shearer, our Director of Mona Aging and Wellness Center, our distinguished guest, Dr. Cecil Batchelor, and his family, other specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good night to you. Tonight, I speak to you with great joy about my mentor, Dr. Cecil Batchelor, who I affectionately refer to as Dr. B. Dr. Batchelor began working at the Princess Margaret Hospital in 1978. He became the Senior Medical Officer in 1992 and served until 2019. During his tenure, Dr. Batchelor worked very well with primary health care in the parish. He would mention fondly memories of himself and Dr. Paul Linder and other medical officers of health through the years, working together to address varying public health crises. Former Regional Technical Director Dr. Heather Lee Jones always noted that the relationship between primary care and secondary care in St. Thomas could be reflected throughout the region and indeed across the island. The services to our people will be far, far better. This relationship/partnership was possible, we all know, due to the nature of Dr. Cecil Batchelor. Dr. Batchelor is a very skilled gentleman. He was very sure of himself. He knew just how important he was to the function of the parish. As the SME, where he displayed humility, kindness, and a passion to serve the people of St. Thomas. He always mentioned having come to medicine at a time where there was a deep desire to make your country and your fellow Jamaicans that much better. Dr. B had a great deal of experience. He very easily analyzed situations, and having come to a conclusion, would have this pleased smile on his face. He was never hesitant to share his experience, which made for better decision making within the St. Thomas Health Services, as he would highlight problems and potholes in policies and directions taken in healthcare in the past, so that we could make better decisions in the present. I was always intrigued when the minister and myself came up with some brilliant way to address a problem or to capitalize on an opportunity. And Dr. Lee would inform me in his very nice, soft-spoken way, Doyen, this was already done in 1978, 1984, and again in 1997. This was a downfall, these were the solutions, capitalize on it. I did not walk into any situation which I'm unprepared to ask Dr. Batchelor. Dr. Batchelor was very much aware of the attrition of staff and skill sets, especially with us in rural areas. He was a big advocate of recruitment, training, and development. He would go into the high schools in the parish, Margaret High School in particular, to give talks encouraging students to stay competent to their career in health, particularly medicine, encourage and facilitate his own staff for further training, especially postgraduate studies. He was a very, very supportive person. Dr. B knew that money was needed to run a health facility and to provide the services that people truly needed. He was a part of the parish's planning and budgeting of services, but what struck me was his aversion to wastage. He taught me to reuse envelopes and other stationery, just as he did. One was preventing the loss of funds. This would allow for the funds to be used for what was genuinely needed. He reminded me oftentimes that financial constraints were not a new thing, and that we're privileged to live in these days of disposable syringes and gloves as compared to those who did. Dr. Batchelor, you're a giant amongst men, and a light of inspiration for us all, whether in healthcare or as normal individuals in the parish. You have left us in a good place to continue to improve the services and care that we provide. Your passion lives on within us, and we are forever grateful to you for making us better professionals and indeed better human beings. Enjoy retirement, Dr. B. Have fun, continue to shine, continue to be you. We love you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Our thoughts are appreciated. Errol Green, Order of Jamaica OD, Justice of the Peace JP. He is the Regional Director for the Southeast Regional Health Authority, SARA. As Regional Director, Mr. Green is responsible for the management of all public hospitals and health centers in the parishes of St. Thomas, St. Catherine, and Kingston, and St. Andrew. Prior to assuming the position of Regional Director of SARA, Mr. Green was the Regional Director of the Western Regional Health Authority, where he served from 2018 to 2021. Before his assumption of the position of Regional Director of the WRHA, Mr. Green served as Chief Executive Officer, CEO, of the Kingston Public and Victoria Jubilee Hospitals. He joined the staff of the KPH and Victoria Jubilee after serving as Chief Executive Officer of the St. Thomas Municipal Corporation, a position he held from February 2014 to December 2016. He retired from the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation, KCC, where he was Town Clerk and Chief Executive Officer. He held a position from March 1999 up to the time of his movement to the then St. Thomas Parish Council. While at the KCC, he was seconded to the Kingston City Centre Improvement Company in July 2004, where he served as Chief Executive Officer until January 2006. In June 2005, while still at the KCCIC, he was asked to assume responsibilities as Manager Pro Tem of the National Solid Waste Management Authority. His secondment ended in September 2007, when he returned to the KCC. Before joining the KCC, Mr. Green was the Assistant General Manager in charge of market operations and trading at the Jamaica Stock Exchange. He occupied this position for 4 years. Mr. Green's working experience also includes 15 years in the field of financial services operations, where he was employed in several different management positions at Merrill Lynch and Company in New York. Before joining staff at Merrill Lynch, Mr. Green worked at the Ministry of Construction, Public Works Department from June 1971 to June 1981. Mr. Green is a holder of an MBA in International Business and Finance and a BSc, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And has for over 35 years experience in senior management positions in both private and public sectors. Mr. Green is the beneficiary of several training courses, seminars in management, international auditing and investment, and banking. Mr. Green is one of the handful of Jamaicans listed on the international Who is Who of Business Professionals. He's also listed on the Barron's Who is Who of International Banking and Finance. and he has membership in several professional organizations, amongst them the American Management Association. Mr. Green has significant corporate experience as he has served on several corporate boards. A recipient of the Order of Distinction, OD, for outstanding public service, Mr. Green is also a recipient of the Governor General's Achievement Award. Mr. Green is a JP for the Parish of Kingston. He is a trustee and past president of the Magistrates Association of Jamaica and a past president of the LMHA chapter in Kingston. He has acted as Custos of Kingston on a number of occasions. He is also a past chairman of International Volunteers and past president of the St. Jago High School Past Students Association. He's a devout Baptist, I was told, and enjoys reading photography, gardening, listening to music, and he plays dominoes in his spare time. Ladies and gentlemen, to bring us greetings this evening, put your hands together. Make this a
Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Cecil Batchelor, SMO Emeritus of the Princess Margaret Hospital and his distinguished family, and I was singled out by my friend Bishop Bowling from Montego Bay. The most honorable Professor Denise Shearer, who is joining us on the Zoom platform. Dr. Sandra Chambers, Regional Technical Director. Mrs. Colleen Wright, Parish Manager for the St. Thomas Health Services. Dr. Dorian Smith, Senior Medical Officer of Health in the St. Thomas Health Services. Mrs. Melissa Linton, Chief Executive Officer, Princess Margaret Hospital. Dr. Dwight Whittle, Acting SMO, Princess Margaret Hospital. Other members of the senior management team of the St. Thomas Hospital, of the Princess Margaret Hospital rather, and the St. Thomas Health Services. Directors of the Ministry of Health, my good friend Dr. Weir. Senior Directors of SERA, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Before I go further, I must apologize for two of my bosses. The Honorable Minister asked me to apologize for him, and thankfully my introduction was a very lengthy one because the Minister asked me to speak for him. So I don't know what would have happened were it not for that interruption. And I'd like to apologize for our Chairman of the SERA Board, Mr. Wentworth Charles, who is unavoidably absent. I'm very delighted this evening to speak and to bring greetings and to recognize the work of Dr. Cecil Batchelor, former Senior Medical Officer of the Princess Margaret Hospital. Dr. Batchelor, as you have heard from the two distinguished doctors who spoke earlier, is a trailblazer who gave excellent service to the people of St. Thomas for over 25 years. At that time, when he became the SMO, he had only 2 medical officers working along with him. And up to the time of his retirement in December 2019, he had 20 doctors employed in the institution. Under his leadership as the SMO, his team performed many successful surgeries, which has contributed significantly to the excellent care delivered at the Princess Margaret Hospital over time. Dr. Batchelor was a man for the people and represented the people of St. Thomas and his profession with distinction. And I must tell Dr. Batchelor's family a little secret. I worked in St. Thomas for a few years, and it was rumored that whenever the PNP was looking for a candidate to challenge the member in Western St. Thomas, Dr. Batchelor's name always come up. And when the JLP is looking for a candidate to challenge the 7-star general, Dr. Batchelor's name always come up. Yes, so he was a man who was mixed with orange and green. Nobody knew who he truly was, but such was the mettle of the man that both sides claimed him as their own. He was a doctor. He's a doctor rather par excellence. And as you would have seen and heard from the glowing tributes of the two doctors who spoke before him, that he was indeed a doctor's doctor. I'm delighted to hear that he has introduced endoscopy to Princess Margaret Hospital. I'll be sure RTD to be sending, making sure some referrals go to Princess Margaret for those who need endoscopy services. Because you're doing something that not even the mighty KPH is in a position to do at this time. And it must be the best held secret that Princess Margaret has that capability and is keeping it to themselves and the people of St. Thomas. But we're going to make sure that we get some referrals. Dr. Batchelor will be remembered by the team at the hospital for his compassionate spirit and his wise counsel, testament by the tribute of Dr. Smith. He would always encourage the staff at Princess Margaret Hospital to live as family, which resulted in increased staff productivity and loyalty. He treated everyone with respect, no matter their situation. I'd like to use this opportunity to extend my highest commendations and gratitude to Dr. Batchelor for his outstanding performance and dedicated service to the Princess Margaret Hospital and to the people of St. Thomas. And I must say something here, is that Dr. Batchelor and myself were a long way even before he even knew it. Because I walked behind him in the hallowed halls of St. Jago High School. And I do remember as a little boy, Cecil Batchelor as one of those students who we were always encouraged as youngsters to emulate and to look up to. So Dr. Batchelor, it is indeed a very proud moment for me this evening to stand not only as the Regional Director of the Southeast Regional Health Authority, but as the past President of the St. Jago High School Association, and to say, Labor Omnia Winkit, continue the good work.
All right, so we have been talking a lot, and so we want to just break that sequence now. We have a singer in the house. And at this time, I'm going to be inviting Miss Diana Thompson, patient care assistant at the Princess Margaret Hospital, to come on stage and to bless our hearts with some good singing and to entertain us. And hello, please put your hands together and make Diana feel welcome as she comes to perform for us.
There's a hero. If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. There's an answer if you reach into your soul, and the sorrow that you know will melt away. But then here comes along with the strength
Serve It Love. Anybody watch that movie?
Yes.
I still remember that movie from about second form in high school. Long time ago. Dr. Michael McLeod wants us to know that he is sorry. That he is, or Mr. Michael McLeod, my apologies. He is unable to make it, and so he sends his apologies. Alright, now, I shared a quick story that I heard about two persons who were in a mental health facility. And you know that when persons are mentally ill, the objective is to get them better. And so there are ways and means that are devised to test them to see their readiness to be reintegrated back into society. Am I correct, mental health persons? I'm correct. Great. So, Dorothy and Jim ended up in this mental health facility, this hospital, and they became very good friends. One day they were striding past a pool, and Jim decided to just jump in the pool. He can't swim, but he jumped off in the pool. Dorothy, who was a very good swimmer, of course, she jumped in the pool as well, and she saved Jim's life. Now, the persons in charge of patient care were very impressed, and they said that, we believe that Dorothy is ready to be discharged and be reintegrated back into regular society. So, they decided to go and give Dorothy the good news. However, when the gentleman was on his way, the news came to him that Jim had hanged himself. So when he got to Dorothy, he said, Dorothy, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news, Dorothy, is that based on what you displayed this afternoon, you are well enough to be reintegrated back into society. We are happy that you saved Jim's life, and that act of bravery has qualified you for that. The bad news, however, is that after saving Jim, he went and hanged himself in the bathroom. Dorothy turned to the patient care person and said to him, "No, Jim did not hang himself. I hung out Jim to dry." Maureen Swellion is a devoted, committed, and inspiring nurse who believes the sky is the limit. She has been a registered nurse for the past 25 years and is very passionate about healthcare and life in general. She is currently the Deputy Director of Nursing Services at the Princess Margaret Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and make Maureen welcome.
Thank you, sir. All protocols established be observed. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maureen Young-Sewell, Deputy Director of Nursing Services at the Princess Margaret Hospital. The pleasure is mine this evening, to introduce to you our guest speaker, Dr. Denise Elemiah Shearer, Professor of Public Health and Aging, CD, BA, MB, BS, Diploma in Public Health, PhD, OJ. Professor Elemiah Shearer is presently the Executive Director for the Mona Aging and Wellness Center at the University of the West Indies. Her academic interest covers both aging and public health, lecturing and activity, researching in both areas. She contributed to the development of public health programs at Mona, most recently presently the Master of Public Health in Gerontology, Diploma in Gerontology, and a PhD in Aging Studies. She also maintained her clinical practice. Throughout her academic career, Professor Elamaya Shearer has remained a strong and passionate advocate for older persons, both locally and internationally. In recent times, she has focused on primary healthcare renewal from the geriatric inclusion perspective. With the advent of COVID-19 and the targeting of older persons as a vulnerable group, she has advocated strongly for the access to vaccines for older persons, including operating a vaccination center for older persons. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Professor Denise Elamaya Shearer, our next speaker.
Dr. Batchelor and your family, and after that I will say all protocols observed. I deeply regret not being there in person. I had intended to be, but some other things had their say in the matter, but I am very glad that I am able to be here with you, Cecil and family, tonight. Tonight is very special to me. I can't beat Mr. Green, but I have known Dr. Batchelor since medical school. And I'm not going to try to match what Dr. Whittle, Dr. Doyen said about Dr. Batchelor and his practice in St. Thomas, because clearly I'm not there. But when I was asked to speak, I thought, now, what can I say about him that won't be said by everybody that is there? As we look at our profession in medicine, whether it's our doctors, our nurses, or other groups, a lot has been said in recent years about compassionate care and about how we see patients. Everybody tonight has spoken about Dr. Batchelor and his softness, his gentleness, which was always there, as I'm sure his family will agree. And so I thought, let us share a few words tonight on what legacy he leaves. Yes, he leaves a legacy in St. Thomas. He's a surgeon. When he became a surgeon way back in the 60s, there were very few surgeons around. He could have stayed in Kingston. He could have gone into purely private practice, but he chose to serve the people, the rural people. There were many calls for persons to go rural, and Dr. Batchelor answered that call. I am sure there are times that his family, Mrs. Batchelor, was tearing out her hair when the theatre called and he missed functions, he missed school functions in particular. And therefore I think that in addition to all the personal tributes that have been played, I think he can say, job well done. And as my mentor said to me 40 years ago, you will only be remembered for what you left behind. Cecil, you have left behind a legacy of caring. What is caring? What is giving care? It's a very special skill. It's a special skill that has become more special with time because of the problems of the health service, the problems of... Can you imagine driving to St. Thomas every day? It must have... You really had to plan to do that. But our retiree tonight has shown that it can be done, and he has left that message. He has shown us that giving care is about putting others before self, even family. It's fundamental to healthcare delivery, and that's the legacy that he leaves in St. Thomas and the wider community, because he has interacted in the region, he has interacted with all of us. We are a tight group from the 70s into the 80s. We have stayed in touch over the years. There are many WhatsApp conversations going around. And he has been able to share there. Care, as we know, and as he knows and as he has shown us, is much more than just treating an illness. It's getting somebody better, it's getting them to accept it, and it's also about empathy. It's about understanding. How does the patient see what has happened? How does their family? And we all know from the stories we have heard of his patient care that he has always taken the time to do that. As everybody who has spoken tonight spoke about, it's about teamwork. Now, very rarely do you see surgeons going on to manage hospitals and to manage services. Surgeons like to cut, they spend most of their time in the operating theatre. For those of us that have been in administration over the years, there is an awful lot of paperwork. The protocols, the procurements, and yet Dr. Batchelor saw this as critical to the delivery of healthcare in the region and in his area. Working with teams, working with people who are interested in finance and not au fait with what it takes with the patients, are not always easy to work with, but Dr. Batchelor found a way to do it. People can be difficult. We as doctors can be difficult. We get bothered by patients. We get bothered when we lose a patient. We get bothered when we give patients bad news. So we also can be difficult. But you have to have that skill, that caring skill, to be able to put all that behind you and to get on with getting what needs to be done. We always have bad days. We all have bad days. We're all human. But it's not everybody's business what we have brought to work with us. And he leaves that with us. He leaves that message with us that when you cross that hospital door, that go up that step, get out of the car, go up the step, then it's the patients. It's the patients, it's the delivery of healthcare that is important. Giving care is about values and attitudes. It's about the example that you set, the example that you set in the workplace, the example that you set coming in, the example that you set at home, because whether we all like it or not, people get to know us, people get to share. The beliefs, the ideals, these need to translate into actions, and I think that you will all agree with me if I say that Dr. Batchelor has left that legacy of transferring strong values, strong attitudes into the workplace. Providing care is about confidentiality, protecting the rights of others, protecting the rights of patients. COVID and their vaccines have challenged this. I think all of us as healthcare professionals have been tremendously challenged over the last 3 years. Vaccinate or not? Do we wear a mask or not? Do we have a right? Do we have a right to refuse to see people who are not wearing masks? I stopped seeing patients in my office who weren't vaccinated, and I was taken to task by a member of staff actually at the university who told me I was now breaking the Hippocratic oath. And when I said to her, but I'm in the vulnerable group, I'm over 60, she said, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you get it, I need care. How as a doctor do you deal with this at a personal level? You are going home to a wife, you are going home to children. Who comes first? These are some of the issues that we have had to face over the last couple of years. It's not the first time that we face these issues. We face them at the workplace all the time. And Dr. Batchelor has been able to go through those waters, go through those rocky roads, and still care for his patients. It's been a struggle, I'm sure, for him at times. It has certainly been a struggle for me to respect some of the ideas, and yet we must. We are not always right. Others are allowed their opinions. But it is a good clinician, a good doctor, a good human being. And I think the most important thing about Dr. Batchelor is that he is a good human being. And that's the legacy that he leaves, because he was a good human being. It's about being able to deal with opposition. Care is about effective partnerships. It's about communication. And all our speakers tonight, Dr. Smith called him his mentor. Dr. Whittle spoke to him, taking him into St. Thomas and grooming him. That is the communication that good doctors leave behind. And that's the legacy. So we say happy retirement to Dr. Batchelor tonight. But what is important is that he leaves behind Dr. Whittle, Dr. Smith. I am sure that if we went through the nurses, if we went through the public health inspectors, if we went through the attendants, the persons who clean the operating theatres, they will all have a story about Dr. Batchelor and his gentleness and his care. It's equally about trust and integrity. So as we talk about leaving behind this model of care, this legacy of care, a couple of words to those of you who are sharing this moment. Learn from him, but you also have to look after yourself. You won't be able to care at the workplace if you have not looked after yourself. Health is a status, yes. You have hypertension, you have diabetes, you need to take care of that. You need to take medications, you need to be physically active. But most important, it's about wellness. And what is wellness? Able to identify with as we go through. The physical wellness, there is emotional wellness. We've had some stories about mental health. Let us never forget mental health. Let us never forget the importance of mental health. And as we talk about physical, biological, Dr. Ferguson, I promise you, I will not leave out dental health. These are things that we need to look about. Can you imagine trying to deal with a miserable crying baby with a heck of a toothache? So you need to look after yourself to be able to give this care. It's about occupational wellness. It's about ensuring the environment. Social wellness. Everybody tonight has spoken about Dr. Batchelor and his family. Mrs. Batchelor I have known, of course, all this time as well. It is that social connection, that is connectivity, that allows Dr. Batchelor to go into retirement, not having to worry about who is Dr. Batchelor, what is Dr. Batchelor going to do. Yes, he's going to see his patients. Yes, he's going to do your laparoscopes. But there is still going to be time on his hands to hopefully to enjoy, hopefully to relax, hopefully know to do things that he would have liked to have done 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And therefore, I will leave. I know I'm standing between you and your dinner, but I just want to leave a couple of thoughts about retirement with you, Dr. Cecil, your family, and also with our audience. Retirement is not retirement from life. Retirement is simply going to another phase, to going to do something else, to be the person that you would like to be other than at work. And therefore, it's about good health, it's about taking care of health, but it's also about asking yourself, what am I going to do with this time? It's never too late. Yes, life expectancy when we all get to age 60 is another 20 to 25 years. Jamaica's an aging country. So after you retire, and I appreciate that this retirement was at the start of COVID, so he's probably gotten very used to it by now. Everybody tells me they're going home to rest and relax. 25 years is a long time to rest and relax, and he may well drive the people at home crazy. And therefore, it's about ensuring that you have something to do, church work, if that's what you want to do, volunteer work. Fortunately, as doctors, we have a skill that we can still use. And therefore, I think that tonight's an important night as the 40 years, because we speak about when he went back there as a doctor, but he was also there before he went to do his surgery. So he has spent a lot of time in the parish of St. Thomas. He has given his working life to the parish of St. Thomas, to the people of St. Thomas, and that is a Therefore, Cecil, as you and your family go into this next phase, where yes, there will be some work, but there's also hopefully going to be some pleasure and some family time. May God bless you. May God give you the joy of having served your country, of having served your people, and most importantly, have served the values and attitudes that you came to medicine with in the early 70s, 72 to be exact, to become the doctor you are today. God bless.
Third place winner in the 2022 Digital Rising Stars. Put your hands together. Make Oshie welcome.
Everyone, good night, and a special good night to you, Mr. Dr. Batchelor and your family. Based on what I've heard, he's a very noble man. I may not have known him personally, but I'm produced of St. Thomas, and it brings me great pleasure to sit here and listen to everybody speak about somebody who doesn't live in the parish, but he offers his service to them daily. And sir, I just want to say congratulations on your retirement, and I pray that everything that you hope to do, that you will do it now.
Looking out on the morning rain, I used to feel so uninspired, and when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it makes me feel so tired. Before the day I met you, life was so unkind, but you're the key to my peace of mind. 'Cause you make me feel, you make me feel, you make me feel like a natural woman, woman. Ooh, what you done to me, and you make me feel so good inside.
your hands together for she. Come on.
Still enough time to figure out how to chase my blues away. I've been right up till now. It's the light of day that shows me how. And when the night falls, my loneliness calls. I dance with somebody. I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Yeah, I wanna dance with somebody. With somebody who loves me. With somebody who loves me. Somebody who loves me, yeah. Ooh, somebody to hold me in his arms. I need a man who'll take a chance at a love that hurt enough to last. And when the night falls, my loneliness calls. I wanna dance with somebody. I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Yeah, I wanna dance with somebody. With somebody who loves me. I wanna dance with somebody. I wanna feel the heat, yeah. I wanna dance with somebody. With somebody who loves me.
Let me just give you the icebreaker. An elderly gentleman turned up at the hospital to see the doctor. He said to the doc, "It hurts all over." Doctor did not quite understand what this gentleman was trying to say, so doc said to him, "Okay, touch your head. Do you feel any pain?" He said, "Yes, doc, I'm feeling pain." Touch your shoulder, and so doc having touched just about every part of his body. And yes, he was feeling pain. Doc said, "Okay." He ordered x-rays and MRI and all the different tests that you do in medical. He said, "Come back in 2 weeks for your result." When he came back, Doc said, "Hey, man, I found your complaint now. I know exactly what was wrong with you. All of you in here are, well, most persons are healthcare professionals, doctors and so forth. Can anybody guess what happened to the young man?"
Broken finger.
Huh?
Broken finger.
Yes, he had a, who said that? He had a broken finger. So if he keeps touching, then of course he's going to feel pain because fingers. Fingers go. All right.
Come on.
At this time, we are going to be having some presentations. And I now invite Mrs. Nadine Anderson Lawrence.
Dr. Batchelor, you have done well for us for the past 41 years as a doctor, and I'm so proud of you, although we spent such a short time, but it looked more like a lifetime. Thank you, sir. At this time, I'm going to call on Mr. Harold Green, or RD, to present to Dr. Batchelor. That's the man. Batchelor. Quiet, unassuming, but very strong. Dr. Batchelor first arrived at Princess Margaret Hospital in 1978 as a young green medical officer. Dr. Batchelor stayed there until 1983, where he went back to Kingston, pursued his postgraduate degree, returned to Princess Margaret 1990. In 1992, he became senior medical officer for the Princess Margaret Hospital, where he stayed until his retirement, 2015 age of retirement, but continued until 2019. He has been there for a total of 35 years and 34 years. And during that period, Dr. Batchelor took Princess Margaret Hospital from a type C hospital to where his colleagues are saying, to a B. Unofficially, all right? Officially still a C. When Dr. Batchelor got there, it was just Dr. Batchelor and what, about 2 medical officers, an A&E, and he and the medical officers did all the services. So everything that came there, they saw. What they couldn't see, then they transferred. When Dr. Batchelor left, we had an obstetric service, we have a pediatric surgery service, we have a surgical service, we have anesthetic, we have internal medicine, and as Dr. Whitley is saying, no, you have a gastroenterologist who can now offer that sort of service. And so, Doc, while you were there, I'm sure you wasn't thinking of all of this. You were just thinking about how do I get the work done and how do I expand the services. But that's a legacy that you have left. You can now retire in peace and said, I would have done my best. When men on earth have done their best, angels in heaven can't do more. Your contribution is something that will live even after you. Your legacy will be there. All our colleagues spoke earlier of your mentorship, your softness, your kindness, your tenderness. You were a friend, a colleague, a mentor, a surgeon, a senior medical officer, and of course in all of that you found time to be a family man. So Doc, please, on behalf of Princess Margaret Hospital, and by extension the Southeast region, we really want to acknowledge and appreciate your service, and we say, Doc, well done. I hope when I go, I can see this. And now we'll call on Mr. Steve Wright Dixon from the lay magistrate of the St. Thomas Division, Justice of the Peace, to come and do his presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, good night. Tonight I'm very honored to be at this function here. I want to say that on behalf of the Costas and the Master Bennett, Justice of the Peace of St. Thomas, we are very fortunate to have a very kind, loving, caring, and the most approachable doctor in Jamaica, Dr. Cecil Batchelor. I can recall we had an event for over 100 and odd people on the street in medical help, and Dr. Batchelor was a guest speaker at our monthly meeting, and we didn't have a medical person to assist us. And Dr. Batchelor took up his phone and made one call, and within 10 minutes, the whole staff of Prisman Hospital was there to assist us. Dr. Batchelor, I want to salute you, sir, for your contribution to St. Thomas. I'm going to ask one of my deputy to present something to you in appreciation. Also, I'm going to ask all of my just MPs in the audience here, please stand so we can show that Dr. Batchelor we are very supportive of him, including Dr. Fenton Ferguson.
Dr. Batchelor, on behalf of the Justice of the Peace Association of Jamaica, St. Thomas Chapter, I deemed it a pleasure in handing you this little token for your love and appreciation and your contribution to the St. Thomas Chapter and the wider community in the field of health.
I'm going to call on the persons who have special gifts. Sister Sandra Walker, Miss Carmen McDuffus Thomas, and Miss Debbie Hall to come forward to present their gifts. In the meantime, these are some words that I used to describe Dr. Batchelor. He was a commander, and he led his team well. He was very energetic. He was charming, intelligent, and loyal. He was a brave man. He was attentive, trustworthy, caring. He's also, one of my colleagues said, you get him when you did not know that he was very handsome, because she knows him from KPH time. He's a very energetic person. I use that again because of all the work that Dr. Batchelor has been doing and still doing. He's very loving. He's an energizer, organizer, and Dr. Batchelor, you are royal.
Dr. Batchelor, on behalf of the Health Care Department of Christian Medical, it is really a pleasure for me to present to you this gift, the symbol of our appreciation for how you love it for us, the interest you had in records all the time, and it's really, really a pleasure to present to you.
Cecil Batchelor, I stand to represent Miss Carmen McDuffus. She think at this time, after so many years, it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy.
And now, Sister Sandra Walker from the Operating Theatre, Princess Margaret Hospital, on behalf of all her staff, member from
Dr. Batchelor, we are so glad to be here. And I'm here to represent the Operating Theatre staff, then and now. And we surely appreciate the love and how you mold us into what we are now. So we see you as that wind, that puff of wind beneath our wings, and your footprints will never fade. So, happy retirement.
Okay. Above and beyond the call of duty, you have given 41 years of yeoman's health care to the Jamaican populace, especially the people of St. Thomas. We hold you high and dear in our hearts, and I'm speaking for all of us from the nursing department of the Princess Margaret Hospital. always love to give gifts. And the gift that is asked for is no gift. And at this time, I'm asking Dr. Whittle, on behalf of Professor Eldermire Sherrill, to come forward to collect her gift.
Congratulations, you done good control.
Next person is Miss Osheen Watson, and I'm calling on Mrs. Ryan Ellington. We're now calling on Miss Shawana Johnson. Yeah. So now, we have ensured that persons who have graced our presence this evening are all gifted. They can go home and enjoy their token. And Dr. Batchelor, it's not over yet. More is coming your way. Just hang on. Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you very much, Nurse. A round of applause for all the givers and, of course, recipients. Now, as we move right along, there is a video presentation, a pictorial flashback moments of Dr. Batchelor.
If you stand up for those down on their knees and lend a voice to those who cannot speak, if you shine a little light, give sight to the ones who've lost their way, there's a place for people like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days down here are through, there's a place up there for people like you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we have all been waiting for. The man himself, Dr. Cecil Batchelor, will come to the podium and now give his response.
Good evening, everyone. All protocols observed. It's rather late, so I'm not going to go to the whole length of it. This has really been a wonderful function, and I'm so glad that we're all here after the pandemic to be a part of it. Retirement was 3 years ago, and there were times I wasn't quite sure that we were going to make it to have a function such as this. I remember at one time when Miss Linton was concerned, I said to her, look here, if I don't make it, just give my wife a plan. she wasn't amused. But I'd like to thank the organizers who organized this function, the CEO and her staff. I think it's really a wonderful function. And I'd like to thank all those who gave tributes tonight. If I wasn't a fairly sane person, my head would still be spinning and very large, you know. As has been said before, I became a senior medical officer at a time after going to university doing the postgrad And I was specially asked by Dr. Diana Ashley to go back to Princess Margaret Hospital, because at the time, if you had a deal in surgery, you were supposed to work at KPH University or Cornwall Regional Hospital, right? But the Hurricane Gilbert had passed through St. Thomas, passed through the island in 1988, and it actually had damaged the hospital much more than any other hospital in the island. The Pan American Health Organization has a booklet on hurricane mitigation, and the Princess Margaret Hospital at the time of Hurricane Gilbert, or the time after Hurricane Gilbert, is on the front of that, and that booklet is all over the world, right? It was a real devastation. The hospital lost 70% of its roof at the time. And Dr. Ashley said to me, you have your DMA, you're supposed to work at KPH, but you know what? You were out there with the persons in St. Thomas. They have been demoralized. I'd like to go out there for 3 years and then try and get the hospital back to scratch and come back into Kingston. When I went there, right, the 181-bed hospital was in one room with 40 beds. Can you imagine? It had been 181 beds before. It was now in one cramped room with 40 beds, no ceiling, and with croaking lizards falling off from time to time onto the patients and the staff. So I could understand why they were demoralized. The hospital was then under reconstruction, and the main building reopened in 1992. During the 2 years that we spent in that cramped room from 1990 to 1992, we still managed to operate on patients, delivered babies, and so on, right? And when we actually moved back into the hospital, the main hospital building, within that first year, we're running back to scratch. But the fact is that we could not get back the 181 beds because the nurses at the time said they couldn't staff the hospital at the level it was before. And we only got back 100 beds at the time. So, you know, we had to do some fancy footwork in terms of how we saw patients and dealt with patients. We had a very strict policy in terms of those who could admit and better discharge patients early. And one of the things that I did at the time was that patients who used to have surgery and have to spend a week in the hospital, I realized then that worldwide there was a change towards ambulatory surgery. So all of a sudden, all the hernias I had, we used to spend 7 days in the hospital, we did them and sent them home the same day. Things like DNCs and cone biopsies and so on. Appendectomies were sent home after 48 hours. That was pretty new because the tendency had been to keep those patients for a week. Well, that's the only way you could manage with less beds in a hospital such as that. And as been mentioned before, I had only 2 medical officers, 2 Burmese doctors, because at the time Jamaican doctors didn't too like to go to the country and they were short anyway. So we had those 2 doctors, and I'm glad Dr. Fenton Ferguson is here because in 1993 I had just 1 doctor, myself and 1 doctor, and that 1 doctor was Dr. Ferguson's son, Lincoln Ferguson. So how did we manage? We had to get the general practitioners to do some duties at nights for us because otherwise both of us would have fallen down, right? By about 1995, 1996, we managed to get a 3rd doctor. I said, Dr. Sukanya here, she and her husband came from India. At that time, it was the 2 of them as a couple and myself. It meant that both of them could not be off at the same time. They were a husband and wife couple, but they couldn't go shopping together, right? Because it would have been a problem at the hospital, right? In that year, 1993, around that time, we delivered 2,000 babies in the hospital. Nowadays, I think when I left there 3 years ago, deliveries are down to 1,000. So the family planning thing was working. We were seeing like doing about 2,000 operations per year, and we saw 22,000. With 3 doctors, 22,000 patients were being seen in the A&E at the time. So it was real kill-dead work, you know. And I must stop here at this point and really thank my wife and my children, right, for the love and support they gave and for the tolerance that they gave, because to do that kind of work, it meant that I had to be away from them for quite a bit. Long days, long working days. My sister is here with her family. My sister is a public health nurse. She's retired now. And her husband, Bishop of Montego Bay. And they have to tell the other siblings why we were always late at family functions. Right? So I'm glad we are here to can take that message, because that was an ongoing thing as well. I was always late for family functions, because the funny thing is that it's always when you have a function to go to that an emergency crops up. I reached a point where my wife stopped buying tickets for us to go to the place together. She buy tickets for her and the children, and to say if you reach on time, you can buy your own tickets. But at Princess Margaret, I had, when I went there at the time, we didn't have any clinics going, so I started a surgical clinic in the 1990s. It was the first surgical clinic in the hospital. At the time, we had a little rheumatic fever clinic, because Dr. Whittle probably would know that at one time, all the rheumatic fever patients got their penicillin monthly shots, the monthly penicillin shots at the hospital, and we ran that clinic. Later on, we passed it over to primary care. And I must also credit the nurses, because at that time in the 1990s, when we had no formal medical clinic per se, they had a little clinic where we saw the diabetic patients and the patients who were hypertensive. And they ran that clinic. They saw the patients, they screened them, did their pressures. If the pressures were very high, they called me. If they were normal, they and the pharmacist had pre-written prescriptions that they just kept on prescribing the same drugs. So that's how we manage, right? Because there's no way, we had to be very, very innovative in terms of giving that kind of care to patients. And I, once again, must give kudos to the nurses, because we had a real good team at the time. We bonded together, the nurses and the doctors and the pharmacists, to make sure that things worked. We were always short of nurses, of course. That's an ongoing thing. When I hear about shortage now, I smile, because it has never really not happened. We have always been short of nurses. Dr. Lampard told me at one time he had 9 registered nurses in the hospital. And if you think of 3 shifts, do the maths, right? It wasn't so bad with me. In the 1990s, I think we were running about 30 plus nurses, right? At the time, and I mean 30 plus total enrolled assistant nurses and registered nurses. So, DNS, Anderson Lawrence and DNS Sinaberry, who work at the hospital, right, can understand where we were. But we worked hard with the doctors and the nurses to keep the service going. Worked hard to keep it going. In terms of making sure that we ease the tension somewhat, what I had to do was we started an annual party for all the staff. And that was good, because it meant that everybody bonded together, right? All the departments. Because sometimes in a year, you don't see people in the lab and the people in the X-ray as often, even though it wasn't so bad, it was a small hospital. But at least when we had our Christmas party, we made sure that everybody was there, right? Ancillary workers, porters, drivers, ambulance drivers, everybody were at that party and everybody danced together. And that was one way of bonding, right? Promoting loyalty in the staff, and also using some of the tensions of work that we had. In 1999, when the ministry proposed the drugstore pharmacy, right, I was very happy to welcome them on the compound, because before that we used to have drug problems. One of the things that Dr. Whittle probably would know is that when I went to Princess Margaret, there were certain drugs we couldn't get for a rural hospital, right? The first time I tried to order gentamicin, for instance, which is a special antibiotic, as an injection, I was told I couldn't have it at Princess Margaret. I was used to it at Cape Breton University. I couldn't get it at Princess Margaret because it did not go to country hospitals. So when I heard that, I jumped in my car and I drove to the medical stores, which is now converted to the National Health Fund, and I walked in and I said, I'm Dr. Batchelor, I'm from Princess Margaret Hospital, I'm the SMO, I need this drug, right? And the pharmacist looked at me, 6 feet tall, 210 pounds, and she said, okay, doctor. She gave me the requisition and said, go in there and choose what you want. And I did that, and I continued doing that until the policy changed to the point where all drugs that was available, the Kingston hospitals were available to country hospitals. Financial constraints were a part of a constant refrain, you know, because the country owed so much money to drugs that there was very little else left. The budget really just took care of salaries and took care of some drugs, right? And I had a problem. I had to run a hospital. I had to keep operating in the operating theatre. I had to have supplies on the wards. So what I therefore had to do, I had to leverage the sympathy that the hurricane had generated nationally and internationally, and just write letters all over the place, locally and to foreign. And it helped. I remember sitting down, accompanying my wife one day to her dressmaker and meeting the dressmaker's daughter, who was in charge of Jamaica Red Cross. And usually, when people see you coming from Princess Margaret, they always ask, how are things? Because it goes all over the press about how the hospital was mashed up years before. So I say, you know, things have, it's not so good, but we're getting along. One of the things I learned, and the MC alluded to it, is that I kept out of politics. I never, as a public servant, said anything bad about any government. So when anybody asked about the hospital, I never said, boy, things terrible. No, that was not me. It was always, we can do a little better. We can take a little help, right? So she had a line to British Red Cross. And next thing I know, she sent me a note and said British Red Cross will be willing to help. This was 1993, I think it was. And I should send a list. So you asked me to send a list, I'm going to send a list. Operating theatre lights, because the operating theatre lights were terrible. You could hardly see to operate with them, right? And I sent a list, and British Red Cross gave us £800,000 of equipment. Operating theatre lights, all the X-ray boxes in the hospital now are from that shipment. Right. When I left in 2019, I don't know if they have been changed, but all the ones I left there were from that shipment. And a host of other things we got for the theatre and so on. So it sort of emboldened me and said, you know what, this begging thing makes sense. So, in the group that was passing through St. Thomas, who expressed an interest in the hospital, I wanted to tour the hospital, we invited them in. We had a group that represented a Roman Catholic hospital in a place called Jasper, Indiana, right? And they wanted to tour the hospital, and they toured and they asked us what we needed, right? I had a list ready, right? We had a relationship with Jasper that went on for about 15 years, right? Where they didn't send doctors, they sent equipment. We got about 2 containers every year from Jasper, and what they did was send their mentalist team, which was great, because that team refurbished the nurses' home completely 1 year, right? Put fans in all the rooms, repainted all the rooms, right? Fixed the bathrooms in the nurses' home. The nurses' home was like brand new. I think it was the best nurses' home in Jamaica at the time when they were finished with it. They also did some refurbishing work on the operating theatre, right? It was a great relationship. The lady who was in charge was a nun, who had a PhD, and she was all about the relationship and having a sister hospital. Unfortunately, when she retired, we found that the persons who were taking over from her probably felt they had done enough. So that relationship sort of solved. But it went on for about 15 years, I think, and we did gain quite a bit from it. There's another group from Virginia who used to come and do health centers, work at health centers. And we heard about them as well, and we invited them into the hospital. And they came, and they looked around, they liked what they saw, and they said they were willing to help. And that was the group that gave us our first laparoscopic set of laparoscopic equipment. And that group has been helping us over the years. They also eventually gave us endoscopic equipment as well, right? And they also gave us operating theatre supplies, and they gave us things like beds and so on. So I was able to run Princess Margaret in the 1990s with very little help from government. All they had to do was pay the salaries, and they bought the drugs. But in terms of equipment, I didn't need equipment from government at the time. And that was, as I said before, because of the sympathy that was generated from the hurricane that kept on going on. And I think the fact that I think I got very good at the begging side of it. And we had the local persons, Food for the Poor became one of our enduring donors as well, right? At least 2 to 3 containers came from them every year in the 1990s. It's a group out of New York, right? It was run by Mrs. Rawl, Mission of Hope. They brought down doctors who did special operations in urology and so on. And one of the things I always told these groups when they write me, asking to come and do special missions in the hospital, I always say, fine, we're very happy to have you, but please note that anything you bring in as equipment is going to stay, right? So that was how I could get all my suction machines, all my diether machines, all my operating room equipment, right, over the years. And then there were local people, you know, Sir Giles and the Matalan family, they gave us things. A gentleman from New York who was a self-made millionaire from St. Thomas, the late Mr. Smith, he gave us several container loads of equipment as well, including a brand new US $40,000 washing machine for the laundry in the early 2000s. Then we had Friends of Princess Margaret Hospital in the UK, and they gave us the first set of glucometers. Glucometers are the things they use to stick patients' fingers and test for sugar. And at the time when we got glucometers, we were the only hospital in the country that had enough glucometers, so we could use it on the wards on a regular basis. Even at university, when I checked, the one glucometer they had per ward, they were locking it away, right? But we had tons of the stuff that came from this particular group, and we got our first electric operating bed from that group in the UK, right? Then we had our local donors, NCB, right? I know the CEO of NCB, Mr. Patrick Hilton, reasonably well, right? And every once in a while, they got touched for things as well, you know? Got a public address system from them, got operating room equipment, got computer systems from them. One day, the late Mr. Eunice from Fabrics to Eunice at store was passing through St. Thomas, and for some reason, he said he wanted to see the hospital. So he came in and we took him around, right? And at the end of it all, you know, I'm watching him and he's watching me because I'm saying, you know, I was wondering why. He wants us to tour. And I said, look, is there anything you need? I said, yes, man, come. And I took him to the female ward. The female ward at the time had these very dull incandescent bulbs. When the time was dark, or the sky was overcast, they put up a drip. And I said, we need some fluorescent lamps. And they're still there now, right? He gave us $50,000 in a check the same day, right? And we refurbished that. So I was telling you that for the youngsters in the system, right? You can't always depend upon government. There is a sense of volunteerism outside there for the person. You need to be able to tap into it, right? And I know that my friend, Dr. Paul Ingrid, knows about it because at one time, she was able to offer us something from things that she had done. So over time, we were able to give supplies to Bustamante Hospital, right? And it was that particular effort has been repaid as well because they have been able to give us things as well. Because we'll get supplies we just couldn't use in the 1990s and early 2000s, right? So we had to sort of give it our own. So how did I manage to do justice to patients in a setting where initially I had no other specialists? You know, something people often wonder, right? One doctor used to work at KPH, came to work with me for a short while, and I said, my God, but you're 4 specialists in one. And I said, no, it's not quite as much as that. I'm a trained general surgeon, but I did a lot of networking, right? Lots of networking, right? I had colleagues who I would call at night to get advice, right? Dr. Wendell Guthrie, esteemed gynecologist, was a good family friend, so I used to call him at night to get advice. The late Professor Charles Dembo was a cardiologist. He and I used to carpool our sons to Woolmer's High School. So at night, I'd stop by his house and have him read my ECGs, right? Patients. The late Professor John Bowling, right, was a good friend of Dr. Lampart, and I'd gone to know him through Dr. Lampart. Right, and he was one of those very kind individuals. You could always call him at night and ask him advice. right? Never refused to answer a phone, never refused to give advice. And then I had my other contemporaries who I'd also called upon, right, to give assistance. And then over the years, in terms of just accepting patients or discussing patients, I had good relationships with all the new SMOs around. I'm glad to see Dr. Michelle Richards Dawson here with her husband, because she has been a great help to us. When I was trying hard to get pediatricians, she was in my corner trying to get a pediatrician as well. And eventually we got Dr. Gentling, 20 specialists. You have 5 specialties. You have general surgery, general medicine, you have pediatrics, and you have obs and gynae, and you have anesthesiologists, right? I kept on coming against a block, right? You're type C, you're not supposed to have these specialists. So eventually with the connivance of RTDs, right, like Dr. Beatrice Bourne who was here, and the HR department, we started sneaking in the people little by little, right? You know, around 2004, actually got permission to employ specialists, gynecologists, and a specialist general surgeon to assist me, and a specialist internist. It took a little while to get the internists because they're not so easy to get, right? And not all of them really want to come to Princess Margaret. But eventually, we managed to get Dr. Whittle, who's on St. Thomas, and we had spent some time in electives at the hospital, right? And was well trained. And he decided to come. But even before then, right, since we couldn't get the full-time persons, right, we managed to get visiting doctors, right? So in pediatrics, from about 2000, I think, or so, might be off for a few years, we had Dr. Jacqueline, right? James. Right, who was here as well, right? Who had a familiar connection with St. Thomas, and therefore agreed to come on Tuesdays to run a pediatric clinic. And I was just very happy about that, because I was reaching a point where I'm saying, what the hell is a general surgeon doing ward rooms on a pediatric ward? Because I'd had to be doing that, right? When I went there first, I had to be doing ward rooms on all the wards, right? So it was a big help to us. And the good thing about Jackie is that she was willing to take calls, even when she was in Spanish Town, from my doctors. So whenever I had serious pediatric cases, they could always call her and say, you know, what do we do about this kind of case, right? And that was a big, big, big help, right? And in the same way, when this particular doctor from KPH called one day and said, he's a cardiologist, and he's thinking of doing some volunteer work, and he'd like to come to Princess Margaret Hospital. I said, sure. Now, I normally said those things even before I contacted the CEO or the RTD or so on. I suppose that's the part about my being brave, because I think if you are doing good, right, then you should be allowed either to change the rule or bend the rule or whatever it is, until such time as the rule can be formally changed, right? It make everyone very happy, but my job was not really to make administrators happy, it was to make the patients well. And that's what I was concerned about, right? And the thing is that Princess Margaret Hospital has always worked above its level. From I went there, I made up my mind it was going to be a type B. Didn't quite happen formally, but in no time at all, that was what we call a type C+, right? And in that sense, it's always been that kind of hospital, right? Dr. R.G. Lampard, who was the SMO before me, right, was into that kind of innovation as well, right? He had made Princess Margaret Hospital the only, or the first rural hospital to do laparoscopic tubal ligations. It was the first rural hospital to have single-trained midwives on the wards, because he had recognized that the midwifery thing was in shambles, right? He did not put up nurses, and at that time, single-trained midwives, right, who got 2-year course, they're not trained into the nursing program first, it was straight to midwifery. They were not allowed at the time to work in hospitals. And Dr. Lombard managed to get them to work into the hospital to the point where the Ministry of Health changed the rule, right? So Princess Margaret Hospital has always gone beyond, right? We're the first hospital to have a visiting psychiatric service, for instance. So when people spoke about outreach, right, that program was run by the late Dr. Frank Hattie for about 30 years, right? Every Tuesday he came out. That didn't happen in any other country hospital, right? So we have always sort of bounced above our limits, right? But you know, the work was hard, it was long, right? But it was still very satisfying work, right? And we managed to build a team that was loyal and that worked, right? It took me years to realize, for instance, that my operating room staff invariably when they're going home in the evenings, because you know, the DNS warrior, I call him mentioned some long time, but Princess Margaret didn't have a shift system in the operating theatre. It was the same nurses who work in the morning who would have to come back at nights to work for emergencies. And I admit I must have been a hard taskmaster. So my nurses are here, right? Because there are times when we went from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening. And if we had emergencies, we just did them, we just incorporated them. And it was a great team. And what I realized that these nurses were doing after a while, which I didn't know, is that if we had an early day, which means they were leaving at say 5 o'clock, they would all walk through the A&E and they'd walk through the maternity ward to make sure there were no pending emergencies, right? Because they didn't want to be called back, right? And there was many a day when I was driving through the gate and I learned to glance in my rearview mirror because I see people running behind me and waiting for me, right? Because you know, those are days without cell phones, right? Or once in a while, I think it happened a few times, I put the car in reverse and I look in the rearview mirror and I see a car behind me and I'm wondering what's happening here. Right? It's a relative was brought in somebody who they think is very sick and it's Dr. Batchelor's reverse light on and they not allow him to leave the hospital. Right? So it was blocked me completely. Right? You know? But it was really good work. Right? And I really appreciate just looking after all these persons and having somebody just say thanks. Right? Just say thanks. The time I spent at hospital there, I had the pleasure of having a number of persons passing through, right? All the 4 governors general, from first at Glasspool right back to Sir Patrick Allen, have passed through Princess Margaret, and they always had one thing to say, which I found surprising. They always said, "Oh, come the hospital, don't smell like a hospital." And I couldn't quite figure it out, you know, until I started visiting a few other hospitals. I said, oh. So for that, I had to thank the nursing staff and the ancillary staff for keeping the hospital very clean. I worked through 8 ministers of health, 4 regional technical directors, 12 chief executive officers, 6 matrons, 7 chief medical officers. And it would be cheeky of me to try and grade any of them, right? But I wouldn't do that, right? But I must mention, there was a CEO, the late David Coombs, who we had there, and he was the one who I most bonded with in terms of designing infrastructural work, right? Because I just wanted to get the A&E expanded, and I wanted to get the theatre and the lab and the X-ray expanded, and he was the one who I worked with most closely in terms of getting that kind of thing done. And there were just other team members who would just work well together. Lab persons like Mrs. Blair, who was sitting at the back there, right? Mrs. Blair at one time was the only medical technologist we had. She worked with lab techs, but she was the only technologist. I mean that if I had a cesarean section every night, Mrs. Blair would have to come out every night to do a cross match with those patients. And you know, sometimes I really felt bad because I remember one weekend she told me that her mother was sick in Manchester and she wanted to go, and I told her, no, really. I can't allow you to go for the full weekend, you know. You can go this Saturday, right? But you have to come back this Sunday. Mrs. Blair, thanks. The medical records people, right? They gave me a plaque a while ago because I just had a great appreciation for them. Because I found that these people would work hard. If you had a malaria outbreak, they were expected to come to work 7 days a week and send reports in because the statistics are very important. And these people weren't paid in overtime at all at the time. And IGFO had a special thing for them. I'm glad that by the time I left, they were getting overtime pay. And I really must mention Ms. Wallace, who probably is the longest serving administrator we have had. right? Because she had a particular way of diffusing industrial tensions on the compound. We never had any strike. Whenever the elevator didn't work, the porters would willingly listen to her and lift the patients, right? Because in general, right, porters don't do things like those very easily unless you can talk to them, right? So I am very happy about processes like those. In terms of community involvement, and I'm winding down, right? You know, I generally resisted all efforts to join any service club because I thought I was a one-man service club. But I made sure that I made myself available to give health talks whenever they asked. And I gave health talks at the churches and generally got involved with the schools, career talks and so on, because I think it was important, especially in a parish like St. Thomas. When I went over there, St. Thomas had only generated one doctor. One. University of the West Indies told me that. So part of my forte out there was to encourage bright youngsters. And I was glad that I was able to be a doctor for some bright youngsters like Dr. Whittle and Dr. Doyen Smith, who presented tonight, who I could mentor. And there were others as well into becoming doctors. I'm just sorry that not all of them want to come and work in their own parish, but I'm certainly happy for the ones who have done so. Right? Really appreciate that. Integration with primary care was one of my pet projects because I think it was very important. Not all SMOs who work in hospitals are interested in primary care, but I realized that whatever happened or didn't happen in primary care definitely impacted the hospital. So we made sure we had a good relationship with the medical officer of health and his team, and that we understood what was going on. And therefore, whenever we had little national threats like the dengue outbreak and the chickpea and the Zika and the Ebola and the West Nile virus and so on, right, or cholera, we had these sensitization sessions which were done jointly by hospital staff and the primary care staff. I learned afterwards that this was not the norm, right? I go to meetings at the ministry and hear SMOs asking questions which I should have gotten from the medical officer of health, right? And then I started hearing that we had the best integration system in Jamaica. So I was really glad for that as well. So really and truly, I really, you know, one other thing I had to thank the medical officers for, right? I didn't mention that when I went out there, apart from being the surgeon and seeing all live patients, I was also doing all the postmortems. True. Yes, I was doing all the postmortems. Somewhere in 2000, I think, and I'm sure it was under Dr. Pauline Weir, or it was Dr. Evan Monroe. Right, they got a demo trained to do postmortems, and that relieved me from some of that kind of work as well. So it was really very comprehensive work, right? But as I said, the team approach, whether with primary care or other persons, was just great. So, you know, as I toned down, I'd just like to thank my wife and children again who supported me with what was probably an obsession more than a job, right? Because I went out there, right? The Ministry of Health did call every 3 years and say it's time to go, it's time to leave. And I kept on saying my work is not finished. I want to see other things done for the people of St. Thomas. I think basically I like the underdog, right? That's what got to me, right? I didn't like the idea that people had, because people come and say, well, you know, you can do better in Kingston, type of thing, as if the people in the rural parts didn't matter. And I think that really got to me. And that's one of the reasons why I stayed. So I like to thank special persons who did things after. I'm glad Dr. Fenton Ferguson is here. When he became Minister of Health, I started getting some of my dreams realized. Right, they also needed a permit of fencing, which we have been trying for years to get, and it was done under his watch. Right, the accident and emergency that we have now, which is one of the most modern in Jamaica, it was started under his watch and finished up under and he was the one who also agreed to allow us to modernize the X-ray department. And when the X-ray department was modernized in, I think it was 2012, 2013, it had the most modern X-ray unit in the island. So I have to thank God. It was a digital unit, and it enabled us to actually send the X-ray images straight to computers, right? We had one in the operating theater, right? And one of my jobs was to try and get them all on the walls, but I never really got them on the walls before I left, but I'm hoping Dr. Whittle will be able to get that going. Right? So I have to thank the persons who worked at Zero, the RTDs, the regional directors, and so on, for their support over the time. Right? And I also need to mention and thank the President Costas Rotolorum of St. Thomas, Honorable Marcia Bennett, because when I had some of my teams who came from abroad to assist us, she used to put them up for free in her hotel. Right? Fraternal, right, of whom Reverend Kirk is a part, because they helped us with counseling of our patients and relatives when they were having issues with grief and so on. And in fact, they were so good to us that they actually gave us a brand new machine for the lab that was needed and which the government couldn't. Well, I couldn't afford to buy it at the time. We couldn't get it. And the Minister's Fraternal actually bought it for us. Right? So I really need to thank the wonderful staff of the hospital. Once again, the government nurses, big, right, who bonded with the medical team and really worked hard to help the patients in St. Thomas. Nurse anesthetists and government X-ray staff were always willing to go beyond the call of duty. And I really have to thank the female attendants. Again, somebody mentioned the relationship we had. It was not by chance. I made a distinct effort to run a hospital that was kind and genteel and that treated the staff as well as we could. Right? We had to make sure that the porters and the female attendants were on the lowest rung and had a tendency to feel that nobody cared about them. I had to make sure that I told them and they realized that I cared. When they had their issues, even their own supervisors, I took up the baton for them. Right? And that is why I think we had a hospital that had one of the lowest rates of industrial problems in the island. Right? Most of the doctors that I worked with over the years, right? And the ones I'm leaving behind were all well trained and have done innovative things since they came. Dr. Whittle, apart from his prowess in gastroenterology, right, and using to the fullest extent the endoscopic equipment that we got as gifts, right. He also has a special interest in his diabetic patients and having diabetic education clinics going, right, which is new. So we're really punching way above our weight at Princess Margaret, right. When I got the first anesthesiologist, right, courtesy of Dr. Bourne, right, all of a sudden critical care in the hospital just expanded, right? And I think it was essential for a pandemic like COVID, because if she wasn't there, right, you'd have had more mortalities at Princess Margaret if we never had an anesthesiologist. So I know that the hospital is in good hands. I know it's in good hands. And in ending, I must thank you for all the gifts. Right? I must also thank those departments that gave me gifts before this particular event. I suspect they thought I would survive COVID. I did have persons from medical records again. Surprised they gave something again tonight, because they came and gave me a big basket at my office. I had persons from the operating theater nurses gave me a big basket. Right? The consultants, group of doctors, gave me enough liquor to keep me drunk for a long time. Right? And you know, I'm just overwhelmed by all of this. One thing I like to leave with persons is that in the healthcare system, and I saw nobody in the economy improves, so we can buy equipment and all that kind of thing. But you have to tap into the volunteerism which is out there. This is very important. And one of the things I learned from traveling to the States is that no matter how rich the American hospitals are, when you walk into a hospital, you see these plaques, right? They have been given things by wealthy people, right? So you need to tap into it, and don't be afraid to write letters to the companies, corporate Jamaica, so to speak, and ask for things if you find that the government is a little bit slow in coming up with this, because government really can't do everything, right? The other thing I want to mention is that you need to prioritize staff welfare. Right, prioritize staff welfare. Do not forget the little people. Right, they treat them badly. They're going to go outside the hospital and tell everybody how the hospital is terrible. Right, so you have to learn to treat them properly. Right, And you have to remember one thing, right? That in terms of healthcare, right? No matter how bright we are, how knowledgeable we are, how skilled we are, right? All of that is about 25%, right? 75% is the caring. If you care enough, you'll do what you have to do for your patients. Thank you.
All right. I will be giving the last word to Mrs. Colleen Wright, Parish Manager, St. Thomas Health Services, and she will move in the vote of thanks for us this evening. Put your hands together for
Much has been said about Dr. Batchelor this evening. All of it is true. I feel honored and privileged to propose the vote of thanks on this very special occasion. Mr. Wallace, you have aptly directed the program. Sincere thanks to you. Ms. Linton, thanks for welcoming us to this very auspicious event. Whatever we do, we should always give thanks. Mrs. Ellington, thanks for inviting God's presence on this evening's activities. Dr. Whittle and Dr. Smith, having worked with Dr. Batchelor over the years, thank you for reminding us of the qualities portrayed by him, which endeared him to you and allowed his clients to have confidence in him. Mr. Green, who has left, we want to still thank him for his support and for gracing us with his presence. Professor Eldermeyer Shearer, our deep sense of appreciation to you for your words of inspiration and encouragement for all of us as we move forward in our lives. Dr. Batchelor, she indicated that you have left a legacy of strong attitudes and values to be emulated. All who made presentations, thank you. And also a big thank you to DNS, Deputy DNS, Maureen Young-Soil. Dr. Batchelor, this evening is your evening. We gathered here to celebrate with you the time spent at the Princess Margaret Hospital, where you provided service par excellence. God's blessings on you and your family as you continue on this chapter of your life. I wish to extend thanks to Ms. Linton, CEO at the PMH, and the team, including Ms. Joanna Johnson, PRO from the regional office, for organizing this event. It could not have been successful without your input. Ladies and gentlemen, we are most grateful that you have blessed us with your presence. And we want to thank you for being here with us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Colleen. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at the end. Allow me 2 minutes to leave a word with you before you go. Much of what you have experienced here this evening comes under one big word. Anybody can guess? Huh?
Commitment.
Love. I heard somebody said love, right? That's it. One big word, love. And I believe that everybody here present came out really and truly to demonstrate their love for Dr. Batchelor. Let me share with you a poem as we go. It's entitled, What is Love? And of course, it was written by myself.
It says, love is a word. It's a noun. It's a verb. Love is action. Evokes reaction. Yes, it's compulsion. Love is original. It's universal, but never marginal. Love is innate, has the power to create, but it never intimidates. Love is an expression spoken in different tongues, but has the same connotation. Love is pure. Love is true. Love is mature. The word love is overused, misused, sometimes even abused. Love is understanding. Love is patient. It's never misgiving. Love is kind. It's so simple, yet divine. Love in any language has the same meaning. Yes, it carries the same feeling. Love has one source and one creator. Our Father God is the originator. So, as you go, remember this. He that does not love does not know God. Why? For God is love. As you go, take love and share love with you wherever you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for being here. I thank you for putting up with me this evening. I thank you for clapping and applauding and laughing at my jokes, even though they might have been corny. Dr. Batchelor, it was a pleasure serving you this evening, you and your family by extension. And to the Princess Margaret, I want you to put your hands together for the staff of the Princess Margaret Hospital and those members of the health fraternity in the parish of St. Thomas. I think you have done well this evening, and I'm very sure that Dr. Batchelor appreciates it from the bottom of his heart. Once again, good night everybody, and thank you very much.